Right, so this video is all about how to renovate your garden, how to renovate your grass. I'm far from an expert at any of this, but what I'm hoping to do is sort of learn on the job and find my feet with it. I see a lot of YouTube videos where people are using all this fancy equipment. I want to go back to basics and try and do this garden renovation in the simplest way possible. So you can see, I've put the rake down on the grass and there's gaps underneath, and this is the story of my entire garden. It's full of these lumps and bumps where we just didn't sort of prep the soil properly before laying the turf last year. There's going to be no fanciness in this video. I've got basic soil, some topsoil from B&Q. I bought myself a rake, the most expensive purchase in all of this, and then I got some twine and also these little pegs to stick in the ground. Even though I've not got the largest lawn in the back garden, it seems quite daunting when you watch all these YouTube videos of people sort of professionally renovating the garden, and the grass turns amazing within like a few weeks. And for me, I didn't want to make a massive investment to renovate the entire space without actually mastering the basics first. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting some pegs into the ground and I'm tying some twine around it, and I'm using that as my base, as where I'm going to work over the next few weeks. I'm going to try and level this part of the grass and overseed it, and hopefully hone some skills with just this small area that I can then use to renovate the rest of the garden later in the spring. Although I've scarified this area before, I'm just going around with a rake now, getting all those last little bits of dead grass ready to put that topsoil down. I tried doing this Saturday and I just had a bit of a nightmare. It started to snow, there's a bit of hail, then it just started to rain. And I thought the best way for a dry day before I start adding the topsoil. So as I started to add the topsoil, I was just using the rake to go along to find any of those low spots in the grass. I was just filling them in, and I attempted to rake it in. I was using the front of the rake, the back of the rake. And to be honest, I was sort of just making it up as I was going along. I'd watched loads of YouTube videos about how to do this, but I think until you actually get down and do it, you realise how much sort of topsoil you do need. And I thought just for this little patch, I wouldn't need a whole lot, but I did go through 3 bags of this, which isn't tons, but it still isn't completely perfect, but it's something it's definitely in a workable state now compared to what it was previously. I used the lawn care lawn soil first, and it seemed quite hard to use. It seemed a bit wet, a bit too moist to actually get the job done. Whereas when I opened the first bag of the Verve soil, which I'll do shortly, it seemed to spread much easier. It was much more dry. So when I was sprinkling it on and using the rake to sort of scrape the soil, it was allowing me to get more of a level surface much more easily. However, my thoughts on the Verve soil did change really quickly when I opened the second bag of it, and it was some of the worst stuff that I could have used. It was completely saturated, it was all clumped up, and it was really difficult to spread around the garden. It was almost at times like putting paste down, so it took a lot of raking just to really smooth out, to really fill in those divots in the grass. You can actually see now how thick it is when I put it down on the grass. It was so moist, it was so hard to sort of get into and work into the grass and the soil that I just put down. So I was trying to scrape it as best I could with the rake, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend this soil for top dressing. And if you are going to use it, maybe open the bag and try and dry it out before you do use it. And I finished off by just using some grass seed, and I don't have any fancy sprinkler. I just went round, sprinkled it down with my hands, took a little bit of the topsoil that was left, and I just sprinkled it over the top. With it being so clumpy, it wasn't really covering up the seed, so I just went over it again and just raked it into the grass with the back of the rake, and it seems to work quite well. Like I said at the start of the video, I'm no expert in this, not by any stretch, but I'm learning as I go, I'm starting with this basic patch at the front of the garden before I move on to tackle the rest of my bumpy lawn. If you'd be interested in watching the rest of this series, feel free to subscribe. I'll be posting possibly weekly videos, giving updates on how the renovation of this small patch is going before I take on the rest of the garden. Thanks for watching.